Hello everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to introduce our topic, Summary by Class Cloud. On this first slide, you'll see the title, The Fundamental Unit of Life, from Class 9 CBSE. In this session, we'll explore key concepts related to the basic building blocks of life, with a focus on how they are categorized and understood in Class 9 science. We'll cover the main ideas and important points to help you grasp this fundamental topic. So, let's get started and dive into the fascinating world of cells. Let's take a closer look at how our understanding of cells has developed over time. In 1665, Robert Hooke used a simple microscope to observe cork, and he noticed small, box-like structures which he called cells, meaning little rooms. This was the first time the term was used in a biological context. Then, in 1674, Leeuwenhoek discovered free-living cells in pond water, revealing that tiny cells are everywhere around us, even in nature's smallest water bodies. Moving forward to 1831, Robert Brown identified the nucleus within cells, which is crucial because it controls many cell activities. In 1839, Purkinje introduced the term protoplasm, referring to the living content inside cells. Now, the foundational idea that all living things are made of cells came from Schleiden and Schwann in 1838 and 1839. They proposed what we now call the cell theory, basically, that plants and animals are composed of cells. Later, in 1855, Virchow added an important point. All cells come from pre-existing cells, meaning cells don't just appear out of nowhere. When we look at different types of organisms, we see that some are unicellular, like amoebas, paramecia, chlamydomonas, and bacteria. These are single-celled organisms that carry out all life processes on their own. Others are multicellular, like plants, animals, and fungi, where different cells have specialized roles, working together to keep the organism alive. Ultimately, what ties all these points together is the idea that the cell is the fundamental unit of life. Every living thing, no matter how simple or complex, is built from cells, which serve as the basic building blocks of life. Let's take a closer look at the structural organization of a cell, starting with the plasma membrane. This is the outer covering of the cell, and it's selectively permeable, meaning it controls what enters and exits the cell. It allows essential substances like oxygen and carbon dioxide to diffuse through, and water moves via osmosis. An interesting process here is endocytosis, where the cell engulfs food particles, which is common in organisms like amoeba. Moving on to the cell wall, which is only present in plant cells. It's made of cellulose, providing rigidity and strength to the cell. This structure also helps prevent the cell from bursting when water enters in hypotonic solutions. When water is lost, the cell can undergo plasmolysis, where the cell contents shrink away from the cell wall. Next is the nucleus, often called the control center of the cell. It has a double membrane with nuclear pores that regulate what enters and exits. Inside, you find chromosomes, which are made of DNA and proteins. This DNA carries genes that are responsible for inheritance. In prokaryotic cells, there's no nuclear membrane. Instead, they have a nucleoid region. In eukaryotic cells, the nucleus is well-defined and enclosed. Now, let's talk about the cytoplasm. It's the fluid that fills the cell inside the plasma membrane, and it contains various organelles that perform different functions. It's important to note that viruses lack cytoplasm and organelles, which is why they only show signs of life when they are inside a host cell. All these components highlight the fundamental unit of life, the cell, and understanding their structure helps us appreciate how life functions at the microscopic level. Let's take a closer look at the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. First, in terms of size, prokaryotic cells are generally smaller, ranging from about 1 to 10 micrometers, whereas eukaryotic cells are larger, typically between 5 and 100 micrometers. This size difference is important because it influences how these cells function and how efficiently they can transport substances within themselves. Next, let's talk about the nucleus. Prokaryotic cells have a nucleoid region where their genetic material is located, but it doesn't have a membrane around it. In contrast, eukaryotic cells have a well-defined nucleus, enclosed by a nuclear membrane, which provides a distinct compartment for their genetic material. When it comes to chromosomes, prokaryotic cells usually have a single circular chromosome, while eukaryotic cells have multiple chromosomes arranged linearly. This difference is significant for genetic organization and inheritance. Finally, regarding organelles, prokaryotic cells generally lack membrane-bound organelles, meaning they don't have specialized structures like mitochondria or the endoplasmic reticulum. Eukaryotic cells, on the other hand, contain a variety of organelles that perform specific functions, allowing for more complex cellular processes. Connecting this to our overall theme, understanding these fundamental differences helps us appreciate how the structure of each cell type relates to its function and complexity in the living world. Now, let's take a closer look at some important cell organelles. First up is the endoplasmic reticulum, or ER. It has two parts: the rough ER, which is studded with ribosomes and is primarily involved in protein synthesis. These ribosomes are like tiny factories that produce proteins the cell needs. Then there's the smooth ER, which doesn't have ribosomes and is mainly responsible for lipid synthesis and detoxification processes. Next, we have the Golgi apparatus. Think of it as the cell's packaging and shipping center. It modifies, sorts, and transports proteins and lipids to their destinations. It also plays a role in forming lysosomes, which are crucial for cell cleanup. Lysosomes are like the cell's waste disposal system. They digest foreign materials like bacteria and also break down worn-out organelles that need recycling. Because of their role in digesting and sometimes destroying the cell itself if damaged, they are often called suicide bags. All of these organelles highlight the complexity and efficiency of the cell, which is the fundamental unit of life. Understanding these structures helps us see how life functions at the microscopic level. Let's take a closer look at Class 9 CBSE and some of the key cellular components. First up, mitochondria. These are often called the powerhouse of the cell because they generate ATP, which is the energy currency that powers all cellular activities. What's interesting is that mitochondria have their own DNA and ribosomes, allowing them to produce some of their own proteins independently. Moving on to plastids, which are found only in plant cells. The most well-known plastid is the chloroplast. This is where photosynthesis happens, the process that allows plants to convert sunlight into chemical energy. Then we have leucoplasts, which are responsible for storage. They store starch, oils, and proteins, serving as energy reserves for the plant. Next, let's talk about vacuoles. In plant cells, vacuoles are quite large and contain cell sap, which helps maintain the cell's rigidity and turgor pressure. In animal cells, vacuoles are much smaller, but they still play roles in storage and transport. Interestingly, in amoeba, a type of unicellular organism, the vacuole acts as a food vacuole, helping the organism digest its food. All these structures highlight the fundamental theme of biology, that the cell is the basic unit of life, with specialized parts working together to keep the organism functioning efficiently. Now let's look at what we see on slide 7. Here, we're focusing on Class 9 CBSE and the topic of cell division. First, we have two main types of cell division, mitosis and meiosis. Mitosis is the process that produces identical cells, which are essential for growth and repair in our bodies. When you get a cut or a scrape, mitosis helps heal that wound by creating new, identical cells. On the other hand, meiosis is a special type of division that produces gametes, that's sperm and egg cells. These are crucial for reproduction because they carry half the genetic material needed to form a new organism. The key takeaway here is that the cell is the fundamental unit of life. Everything in a living organism revolves around cells. Within each cell, organelles play vital roles. They divide the work so that the cell can survive, grow, and reproduce effectively. Remember, understanding how cells divide gives us insight into how life functions at a fundamental level. It connects to the overall theme that the cell is the basic building block of all living things. Now, moving on to the final slide, I want to highlight how we provide academic tutorial services across a wide range of student levels. We cater to primary classes, intermediate, and even senior secondary students preparing for CBSE board exams, as well as other relevant boards in India. Our goal is to support students through both offline and online modes, ensuring accessibility and flexibility. We believe that education should be adaptable to each learner's needs, which is why our services are designed to be versatile. Whether it's in a traditional classroom setting or through digital platforms, we aim to elevate your learning journey. And that's where Class Cloud comes in. It's all about elevating your learning experience, making education more engaging, interactive, and effective. So, whether you're at the beginning of your academic path or preparing for your final exams, our comprehensive support is here to help you succeed.